In today's video, we'll discuss whether adding Saudi Arabia to BRICS can help remove the US dollar's influence from the world's financial system. BRICS countries have been trying to lessen the US dollar's power as the main reserve currency by suggesting changes to the IMF's SDR and endorsing the inclusion of the Chinese renminbi in the SDR basket. These actions are part of BRIC's overall efforts to improve the current global financial organizations. Several months before the first BRICS summit in March 2009, Chinese officials talked about changing how countries store money and suggested using something called the SDR more often. The individual responsible for China's central bank, PBOC Governor Zao Xiaochuan, said that the SDR ought to be an exceptional kind of cash that each nation can utilize. Later, the United Nations also thought this was a good idea and suggested making a new system for how countries save money based on the SDR from the International Monetary Fund. The UN said that the way countries save money now makes it hard to fix problems when they happen. So we need a new system that works better. They said that using the SDR more often could help make the world more stable, strong, and fair. In just a week after the proposal was made, Russia demonstrated its support and emphasized that they share similar views with China on the reform of the international financial system. Not long after, in June 2009, President Dmitry Medvedev expressed Russia's discontent with the existing reserve currency system. He urged the IMF to broaden the SDR basket by adding the renminbi, commodity currencies like the ruble and gold, to create a more effective reserve currency for global settlements. This concern was reiterated during the first BRICS summit, where Russia disclosed its intention to decrease the share of US Treasury bills in its USD 400 billion reserves. This position found resonance with China, and even Brazil and India also came on board, as they announced their respective investments of USD 40 billion and USD 10 billion in IMF bonds. The BRICS nations actually want to broaden their desire to diversify their reserves by decreasing their dependence on the US dollar. This has become a crucial issue for them, and they have collectively shown their commitment to reforming the global reserve currency structure. At the 2011 BRICS summit, the pioneers talked about their common interest in this and announced their help for the change and improvement of the global money-related framework. They believe that a broad-based international reserve currency system can provide greater stability and certainty. The leaders also welcomed the ongoing discussion about the role of the SDR in the current international monetary system, which includes the composition of the stir basket of currencies. In 2013, the heads of the BRICS countries met up for the BRICS summit. During this summit, the leaders reaffirmed their dedication to transforming and expanding the global monetary structure. Interestingly, their words echoed those used in similar gatherings in 2011. Furthermore, the pioneers communicated their common faith in the significance of consolidating the Chinese cash, the renminbi, into the SDR basket. Fast forward to October 2016, when the BRICS leaders convened in Goa and issued a declaration. In it, they recognized that their collective efforts to reform the current monetary system had yielded only limited progress thus far. The democratic privileges held by the BRICS countries at both the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, as well as their special drawing rights (SDR quota), together don't surpass 15% of the all-out distribution, considering that the BRICS economies, by and large, contribute very nearly a fourth of the worldwide gross domestic product. These figures are very disheartening. Obviously, the BRICS members are confronting critical obstructions in their endeavors to build their impact and portrayal inside the ongoing worldwide system. If reforming the system from within seems unlikely, then the BRICS nations might have to consider adopting a more independent approach, such as relying on gold-based strategies. The members of the BRICS alliance have shown a keen interest in promoting the use of their national currencies during trade settlements. This topic has been extensively discussed in the BRICS summit for close to 2 decades. The aim is to reduce the reliance on the US dollar in international trade. Such initiatives have been reinforced by agreements reached between the members at higher levels, as evidenced by joint statements released by BRICS. Bilateral agreements have been signed, such as the 2009 agreement between China and Russia to move towards settling bilateral trade in their respective currencies. Around the same time, China and Brazil additionally agreed to continuously eliminate the US dollar from their two-sided exchange, which was esteemed at US $40 billion at that point. In 2013, during the BRICS Summit, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Anand Sharma sent forward a proposition to settle two-sided installments in nearby monetary forms. This proposal was discussed with South African counterpart Rob Davies. In 2015, the China Export-Import Bank and South Africa's Investec Bank took action on this proposal by signing a strategic cooperation agreement. The agreement included the use of the renminbi as a settlement currency in trade. By June 2016, the South African rand was added by the PBOC, allowing for direct trading on the Chinese interbank market. The BRICS members have taken additional steps to encourage the use of local currencies and bilateral trade, particularly between China and other BRICS members. They have achieved this through a series of bilateral currency swaps. One such agreement, the China-Brazil Bilateral Swap Agreement, was implemented in 2013, enabling the two nations to trade in local currencies up to the same value of USD $30 billion per year. This accounted for 50% of their bilateral trade in 2012. Similarly, in 2014, Russia and China signed a 3-year currency swap deal worth RMB 150 billion, which was extended for another 3 years in 2017. The same year, South Africa and China signed a 3-year bilateral swap agreement worth 57 billion rands. Most of the BRICS bilateral currency swaps have been in renminbi, which is unsurprising since it is the most internationally accepted of all the BRICS national currencies. The efforts by the BRICS nations to move away from the use of the US dollar in international trade have been progressing well, particularly in bilateral trade. According to Andrei Denisov, the Russian ambassador to China, the use of local currency in India-Russia bilateral trade rose from 6% to 30% between 2013 and 2019. Furthermore, approximately 25% of bilateral trade between Russia and China was settled using local currencies in 2020, which represents a growth of nearly 9 times in less than 7 years. During the years 2013 and 2014, the usage of local currencies for bilateral trade was a modest 2 to 3%. However, the employment of the renminbi for trade in South Africa witnessed significant growth of 65% in the year 2016. Additionally, bilateral currency swaps proved to be an effective method for evading U.S. sanctions. This was exemplified during the strict sanctions of 2014, where the currency swap between Russia and Chinese central banks allowed Russia to circumvent Western isolation, and it fueled a de-dollarization trend between China and Russia. Russia has demonstrated the most significant reduction in the employment of the US dollar in trade amongst BRICS countries since 2013. By the fourth quarter of 2020, Russia's trade de-dollarization reached a landmark where the share of exports sold in US dollars fell below 50% for the first time. However, this decline was not filled by the ruble. Instead, the euro gained traction. The portion of the euro used in Russia's commodity exchanges flooded to 36.1%, a critical leap from a simple 8.7% in the main quarter of 2013. The BRICS nations, the de-dollarization of reciprocal exchange has been the quickest Russia-China exchange. This was expedited by the increased use of local currencies in Russia's exports to China, particularly after significant Russian energy firms halted the use of the US dollar in their energy exports. For instance, in 2015, Gazprom Neft announced that it was settling all its oil exports to China in renminbi. In 2019, Rosneft, Russia's leading crude oil producer, made a significant decision that accelerated the rise of the euro in Russia-China trade. The company opted to switch all its export contracts to euros from the US dollar to safeguard itself from potential US sanctions. This move proved to be advantageous as more than 83% of Russian exports to China were settled in euros by the end of 2020. Consequently, the euro has become the primary currency used in Russia-China trade, replacing the US dollar. With the deterioration of their relationship with the United States in recent years, Russia and China have forged closer ties aimed at jointly de-dollarizing their bilateral trade and promoting the use of local currencies for trade settlements. In 2018, President Putin declared that Russia and China were keen on using national currencies more actively in reciprocal payments. A year later, after meeting President Xi, Putin affirmed that Russia and China intended to foster the practice of settling trade transactions in national currencies. Moreover, the two countries signed a joint declaration, elevating their bilateral relationship to the level of comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination for a new era. China and Russia are working together to improve their relationship, and this has helped them cooperate more effectively and rely less on the US dollar. Moreover, the finance minister of Russia, Anton Siluanov, and the governor of the People's Bank of China, PBOC, Yi Gang, have linked a treaty that permits them to employ their respective national currencies in trade between each other, as well as to increase cross-currency transactions by up to 50%. These recent advancements indicate that Russia and China are inching closer towards creating a hub for de-dollarization, as their connections with the United States have grown tense.